storytelling actually existed before photography. If God actually knew that there was no possible way that he would tell the story of the whole world if there was no light, and he said, "Let there be light," and there was light, he made the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. That makes light one of the most important things you need in storytelling. So it now makes you understand that there are different kinds of lights for different kinds of scenarios. Today we're going to be talking about the relationship between photography, videography, and light. When we talk about photography, we already know what photography is. Just in case I've not defined photography for you, photography is the act of taking pictures and preserving memories. Photography is the art of taking pictures and preserving memories. Did we get that? Photography can also be seen as the art of capturing moments in order to preserve memories. If you're done writing, just look at me. So what photography is the art of taking pictures and preserving moments. Photography can also be seen as the act of capturing moments to preserve memories. So this now brings us to a point where we ask ourselves, is preserving memories the only reason why photography was made? Before the invention of photography, the camera and everything, the art of photography as we know it to be, and videography, how were memories preserved, or were memories even preserved?
I think memories were preserved through painting.
Okay, through painting. Alright, so pass. How were memories preserved?
Memories were preserved through drawings.
Through drawings, paintings,
on
drawings.
rocks. Drawings on rocks.
Drawings on rocks, okay, like sculptures. Okay, how are memories preserved?
Memories are preserved through writing and sculptures, like you said.
Writing, okay,
Sculptures.
so paintings, sculptures, writings. So if you look at how the Bible was written, it almost feels as though it's a movie. Like if you read the Bible, it almost feels like there's a movie playing in your head, right? So that was because of how skilled the people who wrote the book, the original manuscripts were, and they were quite detailed about it. Do you understand my point? So all of those people that wrote those things, you will discover that they were written in Greek, Hebrew, but then you will discover that these writings, they were written down in a way to tell stories. So storytelling actually existed before photography. Do you understand my point? Storytelling actually existed before videography. So even before the invention of the camera, of the invention of the art of photography and videography, you will discover that there were several stories that were told beforehand, and there are different ways to tell a story. You understand? There are some ways that have existed for much longer, and I think one of the earliest means of telling a story was through the one-on-one communication. That is like telling a story orally. So that part was there. And then there was also, it now transcended from just the telling of stories, because there's only so much information that the human brain can hold after a particular time. So there was a need to document the stories that were told orally. You will discover that our parents always said something. My mom told me something when she was very young. My dad told me something and it has stuck with me. You can attest to the fact that not everything that they were told is not everything that they remember to this day. Do you understand my point? Some of those things have been lost, some of those informations have been lost, and they would never come back again. But now, the need for storytelling to be documented now brought about the other different arts forms, you understand, which was made to preserve the original storytelling, which was through the word of mouth. You will discover that even in the Bible times, there were certain people in the Bible that they would say that a certain tradition was passed from their father to the children. You understand? For example, there were certain people in the Bible that they passed on traditions from the fathers, that is from their forefathers down to the children. Do you understand? And all of this was done orally. But then, After a while, you will discover that some of these memories, some of these stories, some of these informations that were passed down from generations to generation, they were lost. So if I tell each and every one of you to stand side by side, and then I whisper something to Raphael, and then I tell Raphael to whisper the same thing to you, and then I tell you to whisper the same thing to her, I hope you know by the time that the message leaves Raphael and gets to Ifoma, the message is not going to be complete anymore, because some elements of the message, he is going to abbreviate some things because he will feel like some things are not needed to be passed on. You are going to abbreviate some things out of the abbreviated things that Raphael told you, and you're going to tell that to Ifoma, which is now going to change the original information from what it was to what it now is. Do you understand? So all of this now, it now mandated the different art forms, which now brought about the invention, or it now brought about the invention of writing. And it started from symbols, you understand? Certain symbols were used to just signify certain things, you understand? Initially, it was people writing on rocks, people writing on the sand, people writing on fabrics, and before you know it, we now started having paper. Do you understand? People writing on paper, and then the paper, it was so hard for you to preserve paper, because after a while, paper would begin to disintegrate. Do you understand? Due to weather conditions or different stuff, there was a need for these informations, these stories to be preserved even way longer than it lasted. So that brought about the thought of the other art forms. So you mentioned true art, true sculptures. In fact, sculptures stayed for much longer, because these sculptures, they were there for ages. But then sculptures were still not immune to changes in the environment, because they were made of rocks, and rocks disintegrate after a while due to weather conditions. As rain continues to fall on, they continue to just disintegrate little by little, little by little. All of these mountains that you see today, they were mighty rocks, they were huge rocks that continue to disintegrate and disintegrate and disintegrate, and now it's what it is. I hope you know that in 50 years from now, these mountains will not stay the same, because there's a force acting on it. So you now see the reason why the need for photography now came up, the need for videography now came up. A need to actually document memories and keep them the same way, to be able to pass that information from time to time. If you look at the pyramids of Egypt, I hope you know it's not the same with what it was when it was made. It's not the same way it was when it was made. You will discover that some parts of the pyramid are actually just even breaking off. But then, if there's now a way for you to actually preserve the memory of how it was before, I hope you know that would have been best. Imagine if photography was around before the first temple of Solomon was destroyed. Think about it. There's no picture whatsoever. There are only descriptions in writing about the temple that Solomon built. Just imagine if there was the camera, imagine if there was even painting. I think there was painting as of then. You understand? At least we were able to get the writings and all. I don't know categorically if there were any paintings of the temple. But then I think the paintings that we have right now is based off of the description in writing that people were able to translate into paintings. So just imagine if we had the camera, it would have just breached that gap, so that we now, if we read the Bible now, we have like a pictorial evidence of what the Bible is about and what it actually looked like. I hope you know, if there was the camera, we would actually know what Jesus Christ actually looks like.
Yes.
But right now, we don't actually know who Jesus Christ actually looked like, because there was no cameras at that time. Now, the need for photography is strongly linked with storytelling. Do you understand? Now, I want to ask you a question. Is it possible for you to tell a story without light? There's no right or wrong answer, just answer.
No. So tell a story without light.
Without light. Just why? You can be audible. Don't think too far. David, answer first.
Okay.
Answer. Do you think it's possible? And don't think too far. This is not. It's not a technical question.
It's not possible to create photography.
No, it's not photography. Is it possible to tell a story without light?
Well, it's possible to tell a story without light.
Okay, it's possible to tell a story without
Yes.
light. Ifama, what do you think? Is it possible to tell a story without light?
Yes, we have several ways to tell a story.
Okay, tell me one.
We have the painting. You don't need light to.
You don't need light to
You don't need
paint.
light to paint.
In a dark place, can you paint? Can you paint in a dark place?
Is it? I don't understand. Is it light to?
Storytelling.
Storytelling.
Yes.
You guys did not get my question. Is it possible to tell a story Now we highlighted, remember we did like a history study now. Yes, we did it from the time of old, you understand, when informations were basically passed orally. Now, we moved on to say it was after this information, because of the limit of the human mind, and these informations were not able to be preserved through generations. So there was a need for a proper means of documentation of these memories, you understand, which now led into stuff like paintings, writings, sculptures, and other art forms. Do you understand? Now, my question is it possible to tell stories in any of these forms?
Okay.
Now, we're not talking about photography. We've not come to photography yet.
Okay.
Is it possible to tell stories without light in any of these art forms?
No.
Okay, so is it yes or no?
No, I stand
No.
to be corrected.
Okay. Why do you stand to be corrected? Just stand with what you said.
No, from my end, I don't think it's possible.
Okay. Yes or no?
Okay, I said yes the first time.
Yes,
Why I
yes.
said yes was because during the old times they were able to tell stories even without lights, which was oral.
Orally.
Yes, orally.
Yes,
Because the
yes.
father was passing information to his children kept on passing generation upon generation upon
Yes.
generation. That's why I said no, because it wasn't a specific question, it was, can you tell a story without light?
Okay, so now your argument is on the oral perspective.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand? So I understand. Remember, I told you that there's no right or wrong answer. Do you get? But then I want to ask you a question. Remember our last class when we mentioned that the person, the chief creative or the biggest creative on earth or ever is God. You understand? And one of the first things he did, if you notice from Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, what did he say? He said that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. You understand? After creating the heaven and the earth, which was basically the canvas. Do you know what a canvas is? You know those are materials that people that paint, artists. You know those white stuff that they paint on top? That's what a canvas is. Do you understand? So now, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, which was the canvas now, which is still your plain camera, like without anything. And the next verse says that, and the earth was without form and void. That is, it was plain as it's meant to be. If you pick up any canvas, a canvas that has something already on it, you're not the original painter of that. You're not the original creator. Do you understand? So now, what was the next thing that he did? He said, let there be light, and there was light. So he knew the master creator, you understand, the chief creator, which is God, actually knew that there was no possible way that he would tell the story of the whole world if there was no light. Now, it now brings me to a point where I'll tackle your response, David. If it was impossible for the person who even made the story to start the story without light, how is it now possible? If God did not put light there to begin the story, would there be any information as to pass down from generation to generation? Should I come again? If God himself, who wrote the story of heaven and earth and all of us as we know it, which is now this whole big story that we have now that is going on, this whole big movie that we are in, we are currently actors in this movie that is called the world, you understand, as we know it. Now, if it was impossible, you understand, for God to actually start that story, I hope you know the story did not start till light came. Do you understand my point? The story did not start. There was the possibility for a story to be told because he had already made a canvas. But then, it was impossible for him to make, I won't say impossible, because there's nothing impossible with God, you understand? He would have found another way to tell the story. But then one of the key things, or the first things, one of the first things that he created was light. You understand? He said, let there be light, and then there was light. So it was after the light, and after some other, I think it was after light, he made what did he make? He made the sun, no. I think the light was the sun, right?
No,
There was light, and then there was sun. Yes, there was all of those things. And then verses later, he now made man. You understand? Let us make man in his own image. Who would you call the key actors on earth? Man. So for the key actors to be introduced into the story that he was telling, light had to come. Can you, for 1 second, imagine the whole world without light? Let's just say God now, because he's all powerful, he can do it actually. I made a statement and I am correcting myself now when I said it was impossible for him to actually tell the story. He could have told the story, but in another way. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because there's nothing actually impossible to God. But then, now I want you to just imagine your life now without light. Take for instance, it was very dark outside. It was pure darkness outside. There was no torchlight. There was no moon. There was no stars to light anything. There was no sun. It was just pure darkness. How many people have experienced those kinds of nights? Probably there's like a seizure of power. And then everywhere is, have you experienced those kind of nights that everywhere is pure darkness? There's no phones, there's nothing, you cannot access anything, it's just pure darkness. Have you experienced it before? So just imagine if that was your reality. That means life as we know it, in fact, you would not even be able to recognize the person next to you, maybe through their voice. But then physically, you would not be able to recognize people. Do you have any objection to this?
No. Yeah, it makes so much sense now, because how will you tell us? Now, imagine if everyone was dark, how will you make sound?
Use the mic always when you talk.
Okay, so now I agree with what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
because imagine in the context of where everywhere is purely dark
Yes.
and there's no even light, because you know that how will you even meet the person to even tell the story? How can you even portray the story?
How can you portray the story? You understand? How will people know the difference of who they are from each other?
How do you know that this what the person says? Is it
Do you
true?
understand?
Is it a
And
lie?
then you will now discover that you mix up your husband or your wife with somebody else because it's that you don't know. And his only voice, and many people have voices alike. Do you understand my point? So if the master creator needed light to actually start the story, I personally believe that you need light to tell any story. Take for instance, if you are writing, it's almost impossible for you to write in darkness. I don't know, maybe some people have mastered the skill of writing and then they can write. But for you to even learn writing, you first have to even see what you're doing. You understand? So it's impossible for you to even tell any stories without light. It's impossible for you to paint without light. It's impossible for you to make a sculpture without light. It's impossible for you to even live without light. That's the funny thing. Because we are the ones that are the stories inside of this movie. It now brings us to the importance of sight. For you to actually see, you need light. That is, for you to actually create any form of art, you first need light, and then you need sight. Then you now create stories. Should I come again? For you to actually create any stories, or to write any story, first of all, you first need sight. That is, you first need to see. And for you to see, you need light. And without sight, you cannot tell any story. You first need light to tell a story. And there's no way that you're going to tell a story without sight. That is, without you seeing, you can't tell a story. Well, you can tell a story if you hear. If you hear, you understand. Like, you can tell a story oral, you understand. You can tell a story like that. But then for you to actually get the proper context in which a particular thing happened, you have to both see and hear. Do you understand? Sometimes even touch. What we are saying now is that the importance of light in storytelling has been there from time immemorial. It has been there even from creation. So you will discover that from everything, you understand, if you discover that the significance of light was always mentioned in Bible days, you understand, it was always mentioned somewhere in the Bible, it was always mentioned in stories of old history. So you will discover that even the story of the God leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, you will discover that he led them by the pillar of fire at night and then the pillar of cloud by day to light their path. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was always light in play in every story that was told. Do you get? For every single story that was told, there was always light in play. So now, it's impossible for you now to tell a story without light. Now, it now brings us to photography. So years down the line, many years down the line, many decades down the line, we discovered that writings, paintings, they could actually get destroyed through floods, through disasters, through what? How else can all of this be destroyed?
Natural disasters.
Natural disasters, different stuff that can happen, floods, natural disasters, all of this, you understand, they can actually destroy all of these forms of art. You understand? Even sculptures never remain the same. As far as they are outside, as far as they are within a natural condition, will continue to have an effect on them till they change form. Years down the line, you discover that a need now arose for the preservation of memories and preservation of information way beyond a particular time. You understand? So we now had the invention of the camera. You understand? We now had, first of all, it was the very analog camera. It was, in fact, it was the camera that was a box. It was in form of like a box. You only could take pictures in negative, and it employed the use of a mirror. You understand? And then before you know it, we got the analog camera. Before you know it, we got the digital camera. Now we have the mirrorless camera, and we don't know what next. Very soon we're going to have something that is beyond mirrorless. Basically, our class today is about the relation between light and photography or videography. So looking at the importance of light, now since we've already established the fact that informations can only be documented and stories can only be told when there's light. Basically, because of the need to preserve information and tell stories that will last from generations to generations, there was a need for the invention of photography, videography, in fact, other forms of preserving memories. You understand? So now, but our major concern is photography, videography, and its relation to light. So now we've already established that from the beginning of history and from the beginning of time, that light was played a crucial role in storytelling. And if we intend to use photography and videography to tell stories, that makes light one of the most important, if not the most important thing you need in storytelling through photography and videography. Now, looking at the camera, you will discover that the way the camera was made to function only with light. Because how was the camera made? First of all, the camera from times of old, what you had was a reflection that was used to capture an image. So you will discover that those box cameras, they usually had these very big mirrors in them. And then on top of the mirrors were something like a negative format plastic was placed on it, so as to reflect whatever the mirror sees on that particular material. I don't know what it is. After achieving the reflection through light, now, you know they cannot have any reflection without light. You understand? You need a mirror to reflect. And for you to actually see anything in a mirror, you need light. So the way it was made that those box cameras was actually made to have a mirror inside of it that will reflect whatever it is onto the material, that now takes that reflection in negative form, and then you discover that they used chemicals and different stuff to actually process this material to make it into a photograph. But then after a while, it was discovered that this form of taking pictures to preserve memories, it was not actually very effective because of the time that was involved. You will discover that it will take days for pictures to actually be ready. But then there was now the need for these memories to be preserved on a spot with less manpower needed and less time needed. So that now brought about the invention of the analog cameras and the digital cameras and all that we know it to be. When the analog camera was made, the camera was made to function in a way that it is when light enters into the camera, that is when the camera is able to capture anything at all. So now take for instance, if you have a camera and you are in a very dark place that has absolutely no light, there will be no way that camera will function. So light on its own is very, very important in your journey as a photographer and as a videographer. What you now have to know about light is that who made light? God. And he made light in different forms. You understand? He made the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. So it now makes you understand that there are different kinds of lights for different kinds of scenarios. But do you know what a lot of photographers actually do? They have one particular type of light that they like to use for everything, which is not right. Do you know that if the world as we know it had only one type of light, I hope you know the story of this world won't be the same. There will be no such thing as night, because it will just be you walking and walking and walking. There's light. You walk, and then that's when you now just imagine if it was always day and there was never night. That means you will discover that you would only have like maybe a break. They will give you maybe like a 3 hours break at work, and then you work for maybe how many hours now? 21 hours. Do you understand? And the 3 hours break is because maybe you are fatigued. But then God, in his wisdom, knew that man on his own, man as an entity, actually needed night to rest. Do you understand? He now made the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. Why did he not make it the other way around? That's my question to you. Why did he not make the lesser light to rule the day and the greater light to rule the night? How many people can sleep with lights comfortably turned on? And I mean a lot of lights, like blasting on your face. Not so many people. In fact, there are some people who can actually sleep with those kind of lights on. You discover that there are not a lot. If you count like 100 people, there are maybe like 1 or 2 people that can actually sleep with lights on. You understand? In fact, when I'm talking about serious light, I'm talking sunlight. Okay, let me rephrase the question. The same way you sleep at night with the lights turned off, if I tell you to go to the middle of the road now with the sun blasting hot right now, without the heat though, just go there and sleep comfortably the same way you sleep at night, is it possible?
No.
You won't sleep. Why? Because there will be distractions. Somehow your brain will actually pick movement and then you'll be distracted. But God, in his wisdom, actually knew that there was a need for uninterrupted rest. So he made the lesser light to rule the night. So now, in this story and this movie that we are currently in, which is the world as we know it to be, which God is now the producer, the director and everything, the maker of this movie, you will discover that he put into consideration how the story was going to turn out before he attached light to it. Do you understand? So when making anything, when telling any stories, it's important for you to actually put into consideration the kind of light to use. That is why you discover that people who actually shoot movies, people who actually shoot pictures, pay attention to light even more than anything else. Because they understand that light actually has a different mood. Now, let me ask you another question. Is it possible for you to have a very romantic moment, like going out to eat? Or is it possible for you to have it's like scorching hot sun and you just go and then there's probably like a restaurant around, you understand that it's in an outdoor area, probably enclosed, or maybe not even enclosed. Just go there, you sit down there and you have like the best meal and then you're with someone that you care about, maybe your wife, your husband or somebody. Will you have the same feeling with someone who actually goes out at night when it's actually cool, when the weather is actually very calm, and then when you actually have this soft breeze that is just going everywhere? Which do you think the atmosphere of love will thrive in more?
Less light.
Less light. Do you understand what I'm saying? So now, it now brings your attention to it that if I want to tell the story of love properly, I have to bring the element of a conducive environment. I cannot use hard light to tell the story of love. And that is what we have like a lot of people doing actually. We have like people who are photographers, videographers, telling the story of love with serious light. You see them, they'll point like strobes facing the direction of the couple, blasting the light at them, and then they will call it okay, style and everything. Well, while I understand that there are different art forms right now, but then you actually have to connect it back to how the world was formed. Do you understand? And how the natural environment would make you feel in that particular moment. How many wedding proposals have you seen happen in very hot sunlight?
It's a calm light.
It's always a calm night. You understand? It's always a very calm night. You discover that anyone that wants to have their wedding proposal, they'll just pick a very cool night. In fact, if they are going to the beach, it has to be the sunset. It can't be the 12 p.m. sun or the 1 p.m. sun. So this now makes you understand that if you're trying to tell the story of love, the best light to actually tell the story of love with is the low light, is the less light, is actually in the light that is not overwhelming, is not taken out of that story. The environment also, wherever you choose to tell the story of love, it has to be a conducive environment. It cannot be a very harsh environment. Now, if you want to tell the story of chaos, maybe a war, maybe you're shooting a movie and you want to tell the story of a war that happened years ago during the medieval eras and all those times, the historic eras when swords were used and all of those things were used, arrows and all of those ancient weapons were used. Is it possible for you to actually have a very intense battle at night. Except for a siege that happens at night when you are trying to deceive people and then just maybe siege them, like you're trying to break into their camp at night without them getting to know that you're coming. But then for an intense battle, in fact, the way battles were fought, the two people from the different sides, from the opposing sides, they will come and face each other during daytime. You understand? They can arrange themselves at night, but as soon as it's break of dawn, the fight starts. I don't know whether you understand. So the story of war and chaos cannot be told at night, because it will almost be hard for you to actually even see your opponents at night. And you will discover that all of those movies that has war scenes at night, you will discover that they always had lights with them. They always had like maybe a fire stick with them, a stick with fire on it, and then them riding on a horse or something. So you will discover that it wasn't even convenient. I hope you know, if you're holding a fire stick with one hand, you can only hold the sword with only one hand. You cannot both hold the fire stick with one hand and hold the sword with two hands too. Do you understand? Because you're only limited by two hands. You only have two hands. This now makes you understand that there are different lights that you should use to tell different stories. So the story of love, you actually have to tell it with the softest light possible. The story of chaos, the story of war, the story of a fight should actually be told with like very harsh lights. Do you understand my point? If you also want to tell the story of, give me something else, what other story can be told?
Sci-fi.
Stories, not sci-fi.
This is sci-fi.
Not sci-fi now. We're not talking science fiction now. What other stories can be told? Like apart from love, apart from war, which other emotions can be felt?
Tragedy.
Huh?
She said tragedy.
Tragedy. Yes. Tragedy. Yes. Thank you. Tragedy. For something like tragedy now, if I want to tell the story of like tragedy, you will discover that it is during the time when it's almost mysterious. Do you understand? The story of mystery can only be told in a dark environment. Mystery actually means that some things are not revealed in the whole picture. That's what mystery actually means. It means that certain details about some information or a story or whatever it is withheld. That's what mystery is. Do you understand? So it's almost impossible for you to tell the story of mystery with the use of very harsh light or very big lights. So take for instance, horror movies. Horror movies are a description of mysterious movies. Give me one of these movies that has all of this magic. Merlin, yes. Merlin was magic, yeah. There's another one that is very popular. There are others that are very
White.
Snow White, yes. If you look at the likes of those magic movies that had like mysterious stuff happening, you will discover that all of those movies have a particular dark tone to it. It wasn't lit to be proper daylight. Even when the magic would happen, you will discover that those magic happens at night. You understand? Or with low light. You will even discover that there's a particular dark theme that the entire movie has. It's way different from a fairy tale story. You know, Disney fairy tale stories has bright lights, bright colors. You will discover that all of these lights don't actually function in the same capacity, because light on its own tells a story. Light as it is a story on its own. So when we have the daylight already, with the way God formed it, the daylight is already telling a story. So if I'm to shoot a movie and all I had to work with is daylight, I already know that I am constrained to shooting a certain kind of movie, shooting a certain kind of picture, because I don't have the luxury of nighttime. So that means I cannot shoot a very dark, mysterious criminal scene during the daytime. Does that mean I cannot shoot another kind of criminal scene during the daytime? I can, but it won't have the same feeling. Do you understand? It won't have the same feeling. Take for instance, an armed robber would not be able to ambush somebody, or you would not be able to fully kidnap somebody in daylight, except in a country that is very corrupt or something. But there are certain things that cannot happen with daylight. Even the Bible says it's evil prevaileth in darkness. That is, there are certain things that cannot happen when there's light. What is the best times that armed robbers actually pick to do their business? Nighttime. The best time that all of these people who choose to steal to do all of this wrong stuff. The best time that they pick to do all of these things is nighttime. Do you understand? Why? Because they want a bit of mystery. They want to actually take their victims unaware. But you will discover that there are certain things, you put those same people during the daytime, they'll be limited. Because there's so much light to expose everything that they are doing. So now when telling a story, the first thing you should actually tell yourself as a photographer and a videographer is, what kind of story do I want to tell? And what kind of light would be best to tell this particular story I want to tell? If you want to tell a story as a photographer, ask yourself, what kind of emotions do I want my audience or whoever is going to see these pictures and videos, what kind of emotions do I want them to feel? And which light will best pass the story or will best pass that feeling or emotions to my audience? That is what you should ask yourself. Not just having one particular light setup that you use for everything. And this is not to say that there are not functional light setups that can work in almost all situations, but then it is almost not totally right for your storytelling. Do you understand? Did we get that?
Yes.
So now the big question is, what kind of story do you want to tell? And what light would be best for that kind of story you want to tell? What kind of emotion do you want to pass? What kind of feeling do you want to pass? And what kind of light would be best to pass that particular feeling or emotions? That is what you should ask yourself. Even before you pick up your camera, even before you pick up anything you want to use to actually tell that particular story. So this will be the end of this particular class, and we will continue the relationship between photography, videography, and light in our next class. Thank you so much for staying to the end. And if you would want to be a part of Belac Academy, you can actually hit the link in the description below to register to be a part of this Creative Institute. Also, if you would want to support us, kindly like this video, share, and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when we drop our next video. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.